Thank you for very kind attention. I will just say a few words in English to welcome you, and I will have the introduction tonight in Arabic. You're very welcome to the Kalimat Festival final night here in Haifa. Thank you very much for coming. And basically everything else I'm going to say is thank you, but just a little bit longer in Arabic. مساء الخير، أهلا وسهلا في الجميع. أهلا بكم في أمسية اليوم الأخير من مهرجان الأدب الفلسطيني كلمات، هنا من شاطئ فلسطين الغربي في الشمال، من عروس الشمال حيفا. يقدم المهرجان 14 كاتبة وكاتب محليين وعالميين، ويقام على فترة 5 أيام بين مدن فلسطين المختلفة، من 3 من تشرين الثاني حتى 8 من تشرين الثاني عام 2018. من القدس بدأنا، ومن ثم إلى نابلس ورام الله وبيت لحم انتقلنا، ونحن هنا الآن في بيتنا وبين أهلنا مع أصدقائنا وأقراننا. أهلا وسهلا بكم جميعا. نحن القائمين على المهرجان نأمل أن يكون فضاء من خلاله يتم الاحتفال بالثقافة بجميع تشكيلاتها، وخلق مساحة للنقاش وتبادل الأفكار الإبداعية والخلاقة. إننا نؤمن أن الكتابة بجميع أشكالها هي وسيلة للتواصل لعدد أكبر من الحضور خارج البيئة والإطار المحيط الضيق، كما أننا نؤمن أن الأدب والكتابة إلى جانب الفن والموسيقى هي طريقة أساسية للتعبير عن النفس والاعتراض على الأوضاع السيئة المحيطة، خاصة للأشخاص والشعوب التي تقبع تحت ظلم وقيود عدم الحرية، كما هو الحال هنا في فلسطين. مهرجان الأدب كلمات يرفض بشدة ما قامت به سلطات الاحتلال في مطار بن غوريون من رفض دخول الكاتبة الفلسطينية سوزان أبولهوا يوم الأول من تشرين الثاني، ومن بعدها اعتقالها وحجزها لما يزيد عن 36 ساعة في الحجز الانفرادي في زنزانة المطار، ومن ثم ترحيلها عودة إلى الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية. لقد حاولنا على مدار الساعات 36 طرق جميع الأبواب القانونية والدبلوماسية لتفادي ترحيلها، ولكن الاحتلال رفض إلا أن يكون احتلالا عنصريا وديكتاتوريا، وتم رفض الاستئنافين المقدمين إلى المحكمة من جانب فريقنا القانوني. لن نتنازل، مع سوزان سنحاول مجددا حتى نتمكن من إدخالها إلى وطنها، وطن أجدادها من القرن التاسع. ومن رحم هذا الألم يسعدنا أن نقدم لكم الليلة المجموعة الأخيرة من الكتاب الفلسطينيين والدوليين. يدير الندوة الكاتب الفلسطيني رجاء شحادة، هو كاتب ومحامي فلسطيني مؤسس منظمة الحق لحقوق الإنسان، كتب العديد من الكتب الشهيرة منها غرباء في البيت ويوميات الاحتلال، حاز على جائزة أورويل عن كتابة شطحات فلسطينية، شارك بالكتابة في العديد من الدوريات العالمية البارزة منها الجارديان، نيويورك تايمز، وملحق نيويورك للكتب. كما يسعدني أيضا أن أقدم الكاتب الفلسطيني علاء Hlehil من مواليد قرية الجيش في الجليل Right, that was a silly mistake. ومقيم في عكا، وابن لعائلة تهجرت من قرية قديتا خلال النكبة. روايته الأخيرة أورفوار عكا في عكا تحاول فهم سيكولوجية المستبد والطاغية من خلال أحداث تاريخية، نشرت في فلسطين وعمان، وهي قيد الترجمة الإنجليزية والفرنسية. وإلى اليسار كاثي اوتن، وهي كاتبة وصحفية بريطانية عملت في العراق من منطقة كردستان. أعدت تحقيقا كبير وهام نشر في كتاب الرماد على وجوههم، النساء اليزيديات والدولة الإسلامية، والذي يبحث في أسر النساء اليزيديات، وقد حاز على جوائز عديدة منها قائمة أفضل 10 كتب في كانون الثاني في عام 2017 من قبل مجلة نيو انترناشونال. وأخيرا وليس آخرا الكاتب الفلسطيني سليم تماري، كاتب وعالم اجتماع فلسطيني، مدير سابق وباحث في مركز الدراسات الفلسطينية، محاضر في جامعة بيرزيت، كتب العديد من الكتب والأبحاث والدراسات في مجال التاريخ الاجتماعي والسياسي، كما يعتبر متخصصا في كتب اليوميات التاريخية، من ضمنها جبل ضد البحر، ويبرز كتابه الأخير بعنوان الحرب الكبرى وإعادة تكوين فلسطين، محطات مهمة في تاريخ فلسطين خلال العهد الأخير من الحكم العثماني في فلسطين. ستكون الندوة باللغتين العربية والإنجليزية حسب ما يرتئي كتابنا الأعزاء، كما أننا نود أن نشكر أولا فتوش على هذه الاستضافة الجميلة هذه الليلة. كما أنني أود أن أشكر شركائنا المجلس الثقافي البريطاني ومؤسسة فريدريش إيبرت الألمانية، المركز الثقافي الفرنسي في القدس، والمركز الألماني جوتي في رام الله، وأيضا داعمين المحليين مؤسسة عبد المحسن قطان. أهلا وسهلا بكم جميعا، وأنتم الآن باليد الأمينة للكاتب رجا شحادة.
Thank you, Mahmoud. Shall we start? To be attended. قدام تخافوش من المحلات قدام. هاي عقدة من وقت المدرسة. هون فيش امتحان بالاخر، مش رح نسال اسئله للجمهور. خلص طبوا في راسي الاثنين، اطلعوهم برا واللي بده يقعد على الارض بصير له محل.
This is to represent.
Okay, we start. Alaa has kindly accepted to hold the microphone for me so that I don't move it back and forth and irritate everybody with the sound coming and going. It's a great honor. This evening we have on the panel two kinds of writers. Literary writers, figures, and who use their imagination to excavate history, and scholars who are more careful explorers of history. I will let each speak for a few minutes on the subject of their choice, or read from their books if they prefer, and then put a question to each to move forward the discussion before turning the floor over to you. I will start with myself. Most of my writing has been concerned with excavating my own history, and through this commenting and describing the larger history. In most cases I do very little research before I write. The only exception was my book of 2010, A Rift in Time Travels with My Ottoman Uncle. In that book I traveled the path that Najib Nassar, the editor of Al-Karmel magazine and a great uncle of mine, as he was being pursued by the Ottoman army on the charge of collaborating with the British, the enemies of the Ottomans during World War I. I will read two short excerpts from that book. In planning the route of his escape, Najib had not been hampered by the political borders that many Palestinians are not allowed to cross today. The river Jordan did not delineate a political border. Without delays, Najib was able to ford it by horse, and in no time found himself on the eastern bank in what today is the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan. When he finally gave himself up, he was transported by train to Damascus, a trip that took no longer than 2 hours. So distorted has the geography become that for us West Bank Palestinians to travel north to Damascus, we would have first to travel east, then north, crossing 4 different countries, and even that is possible only if we are fortunate enough to secure the necessary visas and exit permits from often uncooperative authorities, both Israeli and Arab. The quest for Najib, the details of his life, and the route of his great escape that consumed me for the next 13 years was not an easy one. Most of Palestine's history, together with that of its people, is buried deep in the ground. To reconstruct the journey of my great-great-uncle, I could not visit any of the houses where he and his family had lived in Haifa, his point of departure. This mixed community of Arabs and Jews has become an Israeli city, with most of its former Palestinian inhabitants scattered throughout the world. Najib died on 30 March 1948, just months before the Nakba, the mass expulsion and dispossession of the Arabs of Palestine in 1948 upon the establishment of Israel. Perhaps he was fortunate to be spared that most tragic period in the history of the country. His son, wife, siblings, and every one of our common relatives were forced out of Haifa, losing all their property. They did not realize that they would never be allowed to return to their homes, and so did not take their personal belongings with them. Furniture, books, manuscripts, memorabilia, family photographs, heirlooms, and even personal effects were left behind and never returned. Everything that belonged to them, everything that told their individual stories, was either stolen or seized and deposited in Israeli archives for use by Israeli researchers seeking to understand the history and character of the Arabs whom they were colonizing. No, sorry, I'm going to go on. I haven't finished. But the experience of traveling through the various countries through which Najib traveled, with a glaringly different perception of the land, his and mine, was helpful in leading me to realize the extent to which I had internalized the new geography. Through that virtual trip with Najib, I felt I was partly liberated from the colonization of the self. The epiphany happened at the point of leaving the Central Hills and approaching the Jordan Valley. The sea shimmered so peacefully in the morning sun. I felt a strong desire to follow the Great Fault, traveling through the Rift Valley, starting north in the Syrian plains, through Lake Qar'un in Lebanon, and down to the Dead Sea and Lake Tiberias, examining how it developed from geological pressures as the tectonic plates far below the surface of the earth. Regardless of Palestine and Israel, British colonialism, and the geopolitical realities, I still want to travel through this valley, imagining it as it had once been, all one unit, undivided by present-day borders. But until the political problems of this region are resolved, a prospect unlikely in my lifetime, a trip like this will not be possible. For now, all I could manage, after crossing 4 of the 5 checkpoints along the way in the Galilee, on my way to the Galilee, was to take a moment to contemplate the view in my unceasing attempts at asserting my freedom. The best antidote to the claustrophobia we Palestinians feel while attempting to cross the many borders Israel has created is to focus our attention on the physical expanse of the land. Israel is attempting to define the terrain, to claim and fragment it with wire fences, signposts, gates, and roadblocks, staffed by armed soldiers, backed up by tanks. I am but one of the millions of travelers who have passed through over the ages. I lifted my eyes and beheld the wonderful valley created aeons ago as it stretches far and long north to the Lebanon and south to the Red Sea and into Africa, utterly oblivious of the man-made borders that come and go. Thank you. You want to go next and talk about
Actually, Raja Shehadeh has stolen my thunder because he discussed. I was going to discuss with you my reading of Najib Nassar and a very interesting novel that he published around 1919, immediately after the war, beginning of the British Mandate, called مفتاح الغسالي. And Raja, of course, has preceded this with the publication of his wonderful book called Travels with My Uncle, from which he just read. So instead, I decided to do something else, with your permission. I am going to talk about 3 diaries which were suppressed, all of them focusing on the end of the Ottoman period and the beginning of a new era under the British Mandate. I will tell you later why they were suppressed. 3 diaries, which is something very dear to my heart. I work with family papers, diaries, personal letters, and try to reconstruct and read historical events through these diaries. So it involves intimacies, suppressed exchanges, and in many cases works that were destroyed by the family or attempted to be destroyed by the family because of potential scandals that carry with them. And I'm sure you're familiar with this from your own aunts and uncles who have carried illicit affairs, and some of these were reflected in intimate writings. The 3 works that I'm going to discuss with you are the Siberian diary of an Ottoman officer called Shehadeh, who after the war became known as the historian al-Arif, and the suppressed diary of a totally unknown soldier from Jerusalem called Ihsan Tujman, whose intimate diary reappeared later, and I was able to edit it. Ihsan Tujman from Jerusalem. And the 3rd one, perhaps the most interesting and the least known, is Refika Tamimi, who in 1915 undertook a massive almanac written in Turkish on behest of the governor of Beirut, called Beirut Vilayet. It was written in Turkish and then translated to Arabic as Vilayet Beirut. And the diary, or the quasi-diary I'm talking about, is a military manual which he wrote anonymously, not under his name, called also in Turkish Palestine Census, which means Treatise on Palestine. And I was able only to attribute it to him, and I could be completely wrong, by comparing textual analysis and similarities between the geographic, ethnographic work known as Beirut Vilayeti with the military manual known as Treatise on Palestine, Palestine Census. So very briefly, I'm going to discuss these 3 and suggest why they were suppressed. The first one is a beautiful diary written in Siberia in imprisonment between 1915 and 1918. Arif had been part of a battalion, Ottoman battalion, which was sent to the Russian front. And there was a big battle, a very bloody battle in 1915 in Erzurum, which in Arabic is known as Ardurum. Erzurum in Turkish. And in that battle, the Tsarist army completely obliterated about 4,000 soldiers. Only 12 people survived. 4 officers and 8 soldiers from that battalion, and they were forced to march to Siberia. And many people actually died. I should say that the great amount of death actually happened in the march, not in the battle itself, after they were taken prisoners. So Arif spent 3 lovely years in Siberian encampment. When I say lovely years, I'm not saying this satirically, because he described it as the best 3 years of his life. Because in Siberia, in Krasnoyarsk, they were given total freedom to do anything they want. And they were given the Arab officers were given passes to go and fraternize with the population outside the camp. So in that camp, they had both concert halls, theater facilities, playgrounds, football playground, and they could also produce a newspaper, which he edited and called God's Camel, Naqatullah. It was a handwritten paper. They made like 20 copies of it. There were 18,000 soldiers and officers in that camp. Some Germans and some Austrians, but a lot of them were Turks and Arabs. So in that paper, he began to reflect the rising tide of anger at the Ottoman state and the emergence of an Arab consciousness. So even though, and it's reflected in the writing, because he started writing in Turkish, which was his scholarly language. He was a night editor in Tanin newspaper in Istanbul. And then he moved to write in Arabic, which reflected the secessionist, autonomous move among the Arab soldiers and officers in the Ottoman army. So by the end, the Bolshevik Revolution comes. They open the prison, they escape, they go to Manchuria, from Manchuria to Japan, from Japan he takes a boat. It takes him 3 months to reach home. Takes a boat to Suez, and from Suez he escapes and goes to join Prince Faisal in Jabal al-Duruz. So this is Arif Shehadeh. Very exciting diary. It's suppressed for reasons that I will tell you later about. The second one is a diary of a totally unknown soldier called Ihsan Turjman, which I transcribed and edited and published in a book called Year of the Locust. And I found this diary in the AP section of the Israeli National Library, which means that it was appropriated from the family house in May 1948 in Musrara. We know the exact date it was taken because the Israeli army, the Haganah, made an inventory of the contents of houses they pillaged. And it was sent, like many manuscripts, to the Hebrew University to be discovered many, many years later, not by me, but my colleague Adel Manam, who alerted me to its existence. So I went, copied it, and produced it. And in this diary, which is extremely intimate, written only to himself, and about 10% written in code, which it took us a long time to crack the code. It turns out we thought he belonged to a secret society fighting against the Turks. But it turned out he was having a crush. He had a love crush on his teacher's wife, who is Sultana Abdo, the wife of Khalid Sakakini. And he was very afraid his father or mother would discover the diary, so he wrote it in code, expressing his lust and maybe not lust, but at least longing for Sultana. And in this diary, there's one thing I'd like to share with you, which is he discussed political debates going on among the officer corps in Notre Dame, which was the Ottoman Menzil. It was the military headquarters of the Jerusalem garrison. And one of the things he discusses in this diary is what was going on among the officers in Notre Dame, which was called Menzil al-Aqaba, about the future of Palestine. And it's so interesting because we always think that they would express either loyalty to the state or anger at the state and declare when Palestine would become independent, or yearning for independence. But the majority view among these Arab officers was that Palestine belongs to Egypt, which is so interesting because Egypt was under British control at the time, and Palestine was part of Bilad al-Sham provinces of the Ottoman state. And we forget that in that period, Egypt had the most longing influence on southern Syria, which is Palestine, in terms of trade, cultural influences, newspapers, which continued to be sent until the beginning of the war. So there was some kind of cultural affinity with Egypt, which was so strong that people thought that after the war, Palestine and Egypt will form a united Khedival kingdom. That's a term, Mamlaka Khediwi. He could be just reflecting his own vision, but it's interesting that he recorded this in a diary which was not meant for publication at all. And I will move to the third person, Refika Tamimi, who was commissioned with his partner, something else, with his colleague Muhammad Bahjat from Aleppo, to write a compendium. It's like a Salnami, if you know what a Salnami is. It's like an almanac commissioned by the Ottoman governor in Beirut. Beirut, by the way, was the center of the coastal province, which included Nablus south all the way to Tripoli. That was one single province. It was called the province of Beirut. It was parallel to the province of Damascus. So Mount Lebanon was in Beirut province, and Beirut was the Syrian capital at the time. So they wrote something called Beirut Vilayati, which is an ethnographic description of what was happening for basically for bureaucrats, journalists, scholars, and people who want to do reportage on what's happening in the province of Beirut. Parallel to it, Refika Tamimi was secretly commissioned to write a military manual for officers. And obviously we're talking about somebody who was extremely loyal to the state, although he later changed forces and became a leader of the Istiqlal party in Nablus. But in that period he was a completely loyal officer, and he wrote this ethnographic military manual about Palestine. It was called Palestine Census. Now this is very interesting because Palestine was not an administrative unit in the Ottoman state. There was a country called Palestine, but was not an administrative unit. That country was very amorphously bounded, but was basically the Mutasarrifiyya of Al-Quds al-Sharif, which is the governorship of Jerusalem. And it extended from Jaffa north. Jaffa was the northern part of Palestine, to the Suez Canal in the west. That was Palestine. So he wrote this manual called a treatise on Palestine, which is amazing because for the first time, it's 1915, corresponding to the Beirut Vilayati report, which was signed by him. This was not signed. And it extended the boundaries of Palestine for the first time from Jaffa to the Litani River. So all of a sudden we have a new administrative, geographic, military boundary called Philistine that extended basically to the area which became the British mandate over Palestine. So they removed Sinai from it. Sinai was now under a separate military command from Beersheba, and added Haifa and Akka, and added part of Sur and Saida were part of this new military administrative area called Philistine. So it's very interesting to read this diary, and you get a completely different perspective on what people thought of this land, where it belonged, how it was bounded, how it related to the rest of the Ottoman provinces. And I will end by, do I have another minute? 1 minute. Why were they suppressed? Okay. Shehadeh's diary was not suppressed by the Jordanian state, nor by the Israeli state, nor by the Palestinian Authority, but by his family. And they were afraid that publishing it will reveal certain things about family relations. I mean, it was scandalous in a very oblique way. So they suppressed it together with much of his writings. Unfortunately, we cannot read it now. We can read tidbits about it, which has been published before the suppression. Saint Turjman's diary was not suppressed by the family. It was hidden by the family. It belonged to the Adil Bek Turjman's household after his untimely death. He was shot dead at the age of 23 by his own military commander for reasons that are revealed in my book called Year of the Locust. And the diary was actually pillaged by the Israeli army in 1948, only to be rediscovered many years later and published. And Refika Tamimi's book is not really a diary, it's a military manual, but it reveals a lot about the shifting sands, if you like, of what the strategic thinking of the Ottomans about Palestine was in 1915, 1916, 1917. Basically, they expanded the boundaries of the state because they wanted to preempt the British, Italian, Russian, French attempt to appropriate Palestine as the Holy Land under the rubric of protecting the Holy Land from the Ottoman-German alliance. Thank you.
Before we turn to Alaa, I would like to ask you a question which I don't know if you will find relevant, but you use a lot of memoirs for reading history. Does it make any difference if the memoir is written in a literary style? And I'm thinking of Hlehil, for example, which is ostensibly a novel, but it's not really a novel. Does it make it more difficult for you when something is written in literary style, and so you have to tease out the historical out of it, or is it not a relevant matter?
Not more difficult. It's a completely different, not completely, but a substantially different genre. When you write a biography or autobiography in the literary style, I mean, this is what Tahsin did in Al-Ayyam, Shidyaq did with Saq al-Saq. And basically, writing about yourself in a literary form gives you more freedom, obviously, because you can attribute it to so-and-so, which is not you, it's somebody else. But we all know that it's I who's writing. The difficulty you're referring to is trying to cull the narrative truth out of fictional form. And of course there's a whole school of thought of how to do that. I approach it not from a literary angle. I approach it from the point of view of trying to reconstruct the psyche. It's not a historical truth in terms of events, but what people thought and how they adapted, how they responded to events. So that's the challenge. And it makes it more complex, although in a way it's a more creative way of writing.
Hello everybody, I'll say something in English. I was asked, I'm willing to talk in Arabic, so I'm gonna read an abstract of my novel. It is translated into English these days. It's a short abstract, so bear with me. And then I will be talking in Arabic. And dearest Salim will briefly translate my words after that.
I understand.
If you understand it, of course. Yeah. So, excuse my Arafat accent in reading English. I should find the file now. I can't find the file. Okay, just a moment. Do we have the commercials or something? أنا بديش أقرأ رجع يعني هو اللي ألح وأصر. I can't find it. Maybe I'll go back to the email. Yep. I never read a file from my email, so it's my first time. You can be excited like me. You are allowed to be excited. Yeah, it's awful. Okay, I'm getting there. Patient. If you want to order a beer or something, it's the time. So the most easy thing is to just read the beginning, not the place I wanted to read from. So I read the first 2 paragraphs. The novel is called Au revoir Akka, Au revoir Acre. It's about the siege of Napoleon on Acre in the last year of the 18th century. So basically it's about Napoleon and Jazzar, the Arab ruler of Akka at that time. And it tells the story of the siege. So I'll be talking after the reading about the history and the literature. Basically how, okay, I'll do it after that. It's March 24, 1799. All he needed was to reach out just a little to stab him through the heart. He would have to close in only a few steps to sink the knife into his rib cage. Just 2 fingers width to the left side as they had told him. 2 fingers, no more and no less, and death would be instant. He would stab him just as they had taught him to do yesterday in the camp near Haifa, when they gave him this big French knife and told him, this one is lethal. This can kill the biggest bull. And now he gazed upon them, this man sleeping before him like a bull he intended to slaughter, just as this sleeper had slaughtered so many thousands. That's it for now. Shukran. So I'm gonna move to Arabic now, and you're gonna lose my words of wisdom, but Salim will... طيب, how many people don't understand Arabic? Oh, not the majority, okay. So you Western people now, you are minority. You just feel feel it, how to be. This is my big revenge now from the West people. Okay. لما جيت اكتب روفوار عكا انا عملت بحث تاريخي طويل حوالي 5 سنين. وانا جيت هيك برهبه وخوف انه تاريخ حقائق ومراجع. نور مصالح المؤرخ الشهير قاعد بقول لك شو بدي يحكي عن المؤرخين. فراح ترد بالاخر انت اكيد راح احرضك انا. وبديت اقرا، وبعد كم سنه اكتشفت انه في 3 روايات عن نفس الحرب، عن نفس الشهرين هذول. في الروايه الفرنسيه، في الروايه العربيه الاسلاميه، وفي الروايه الاسرائيليه الصهيونيه. طبعا في الروايه الاسرائيليه الصهيونيه البطل اللي دافع عن عكا وانقذها من الحصار مين؟ فرحي الوزير اليهودي. في الروايه الفرنسيه رغم انه نابليون اندعس عليه مسكين وتحطم وروح، كان نابليون هو بطل الحرب، وانه هاي كبوة حصان ونبوة فارس واللي بدك اياه. كانوا بعد كل معركه يروحوا على السور يفشلوا ويروحوا يكتبوا قديش نابليون رائع وامبراطور عظيم. يعني كتبوا التاريخ زي العرب تقريبا. الروايه الثالثه كانت للعرب المسلمين، وبالاساس كتاب الامير حيدر الشهابي اللي كتب تاريخ الجزار، وطبعا تفخيم وتعظيم في قدرات الجزار الهائله وصموده الباسل في وجه الغزاة الفرنجة النصارى الكفار. مع انه الجزار قبل ما نابليون يصل بكم يوم كان ضابب بشراشه وبده يرحل على صيدا، لا بده يدافع عن عكا ولا همه ارض الاسلام ولا ارض العرب. اجى القبطان سميث، وهي واحده من الاساسيات فهم ليش عكا صمدت، مش بطوله من عكا، كان في ظروف تاريخيه. واهم انا حسب رايي اهم العناصر انه القبطان سميث الاسطول الانجليزي اللي كان فيه عداء مستشرس هذيك الفتره مع الفرنسيين حمى عكا من البحر. فنابليون حاصر عكا من السور من برا من اليابسي، بينما عكا كانت مفتوحه على البحر بشكل مطلق. فكان يصل الأغذية والسلاح والتموين واللي بدكوا إياه ومي. يعني واحدة من أسباب صمود عكا التاريخية هي مش بطولة لأي حدا، هي مجرد إنه الناس ما جاعت وما عطشت. فأنت كيف ممكن تكسر مدينة اللي الناس غاد بتجوعش وبتاكلش البساس والكلاب؟ هيك عادة تنكسر المدن. فصابني ذهول انه يعني نفس الوقائع، لا خلاف على الوقائع، يعني انه هاي مثلا هاي واحدة من الشغلات اللي بتخليك تصفن في التاريخ، انه الكل متفق انه الحصار بدي في هذا نهار وخلص في هذا نهار، انه في تاريخ كذا كانت هاي المعركة، وبتاريخ كذا كان الهجوم، وبتاريخ كذا هذا كان معه عدد من السفن، هذا كان معه عدد من القذائف. ما في خلاف على الوقائع، الخلاف هو على التفسير. فأنا قلت أوكي، أنا رح أكتب الصيغة الرابعة بحرية كاملة، وأنا أدعي أنها حقيقية زي باقي السير. يعني وهذا خلاني أصل لنتيجة مذهلة أنا حسب رأيي، وهذا استنتاج شخصي، إنه المؤرخ كاذب خجول والأديب كاذب وقح. هذا الفرق بيناتهم بأي معنى. انه انت لا يمكن، يعني بدي اخذ كمان نقطه بعدين برشحهم مع بعض. انا بتقديري انه التاريخ كفعل والكتابه الادبيه هن بالاخر عمليه استحضار ارواح. يعني هذا الاسنس، هذا الجوهر. التاريخ بكتب لك عن اسكندر المقدوني ويعني وتشي جيفارا، انت عمليا عم تستحضر ارواح واماكن واشخاص اللي ماتوا واندثروا، مدن ابيدت وشعوب قتلت وشردت، وأشخاص ماتوا من قبل 1000 سنة أو حتى قبل 50 سنة. وعملية التأريخ إنك بتروح تقعد في الأرشيف وتعمل لقاءات وبتدور وبتفحص وبتقارن مخطوطات، وبتقعد 40 سنة تقارن بثلاث مخطوطات تتصل للحقيقة التاريخية. أنت عمليا أنت عم تستحضر أرواح، عم بتقيم أموات من القبر. والفعل الأدبي هو مشابه جدا لهي العملية، مشابه بدرجة كبيرة. ما عندكوش فكرة قديش مشابه. إنه أنت لما بتكتب رواية أنت عمليا عم تخلق، عم بتعيد إنتاج روح أو كائن حي. إذا كان فأنت بتعيد إنتاجه كيف أنت بدك، وإذا لم يكن أنت بتخلقه من الصفر. ففي فعل إلهي، في فعل خلق. وفلوبير الكاتب الفرنسي الشهير حكى جملة أنا كثير بحبها، حكى إنه الكاتب هو مثل الله، موجود في كل مكان ولا يرى. هاي الصنعة الأدبية. وأنا حسب رأيي المؤرخ بيحاول يصل لهذا المحل، بس المؤرخ مسكين مقيد. يعني كل زملاء البروفيسورية في الأكاديميات قاعدين له هيك بيستنوا كتابه الجديد. يعني نور مصالح عنده كتاب ممتاز أنا رح أشتريه، واشتروه على فكرة عن تاريخ فلسطين. بتخيل كل أصدقائه اللدودين في العالم قاعدين له، خصوصا اللوبي الصهيوني، بيستنوا يلاقوا غلطة في المرجع الفلاني. أنا بدي أقرأ روايتي أورفوار عكا، مش رح يقرأها بهذا المنظور. فبالتالي أنا بتقديري المؤرخ الفلسطيني بالبعد التاريخي تبع الفعل تبعه بحرر الأديب الفلسطيني من عبء إثبات الرواية. وهذا شيء مهم جدا. يعني أنا بتقديري واحدة من الأشياء اللي عم بتؤدي لتحرر كل الإبداع الفلسطيني اليوم إنه انعمل شوط طويل في الستينات والسبعينات والثمانينات. بنبدأ من إدوارد سعيد وأبو اللغد وكل هاي الجماعة، وبعدين عندنا نور، وعندنا كمان هسه جيل جديد عم بيطلع في الأكاديميات الغربية، عم بزيل عن الشاعر الفلسطيني، شاعر المقاومة بالستينات، عم بزيل عنه عبء إثبات صحة تاريخنا أو روايتنا الفلسطينية. ولا يمكن الفصل بين الشغلتين. يعني أنا حكيت شوية سركزم عن المؤرخين وكذا، بس في دور مكمل. يعني أنا أقف على كتاف نور مصالحة لحتى أحس بحرية مطلقة أحكي شو بدي، لأنه نور عم بحكي الأسس اللي تقوم عليها الرواية الفلسطينية من ناحية بحث وتمحيص ومقارعة وإثبات وطعج إيدين، وإنه اللوبي الكذا بيحكي كذا. لا، إحنا عنا جواب أفحم من نور. إسا في كتابه الجديد، وإسا اللي في كتاب قديم اللي ضحيت، وفي كتاب جديد اللي رح يطلع. في ناس عم بيعملوا عننا هاي المهمة، وهذا شيء على فكرة مفرح ومثير للعملية الإبداعية. لأنه أنا في أوروفوار عكا تحررت، وهي الجملة يمكن تخوف أو تثير غضب الفلسطينيين. أنا لما كتبت أوروفوار عكا قتلت بوقت الكتاب الفلسطيني اللي داخلي. أنا كنت في حاجة أقتله لحتى أكتب رواية غير مجندة، رواية لا تسعى أو لا تلهث وراء إثبات حقيقة الوجود الفلسطيني العروبي في عكا في 1799. لأنه قبل عملوها محمود يزبك وعادل مناع بن فلسطين، كتبوا عن فترة الجزار وعن فترة ظاهر العمر. فلما يكرس وننتهي بنحط في على وجود ظاهر العمر وتأسيسه لما يسمى أول كيان عروبي أو كيان وطني في فلسطين التاريخية، أنا كمؤلف أدبي خلاص بتحرر من هاي المهمة، ما عملوها. هاي شغلة مهمة جدا وقت الكتابة، إنه أنا ما كتبت رواية كفلسطيني، وأنا حسب رأيي الكاتب البريطاني والأمريكي والعربي واليهودي والأفريقي، أي كاتب بتكون لازم يقتل هذا التوجه في داخله لحتى يطلع شيء جديد عن فلسطين. يعني أنا قتلت الفلسطيني اللي في داخلي، أنا أدعي طبعا ادعائي الخاص لحتى أكتب نص أفضل عن فلسطين بهذا المعنى. فعملية التجند، عملية إنه أنا بدي أكون بايس، بدي أكون مرشي ومجند للقضية بأي ثمن، بمنعني أكتب قديش الجزار كان سيء. فإذا هي بتصفي مسألة أسود قبال أبيض وخير مطلق قبال شر مطلق، هاي الرواية كانت تكتب بشكل مختلف تماما. فالرواية تعتمد على توجه بسيط جدا اللي أنا وصلت له بعد البحث التاريخي اللي عملته، أنه لا يوجد خير مطلق ولا يوجد شر مطلق. وهذا انعكس في الحوارات أو المونولوجات اللي عملوها الجزار نابليون مع بعضهم البعض بشكل كبير في الرواية. السؤال الثالث اللي أنا طرحته على نفسي وأنا أكتب الرواية وأنا عامل ريسيرش هو إنه إحنا ليش نكتب عن التاريخ؟ يعني فعل نوستالجي إنه أنا أكتب عن عكا لأني ساكن بعكا. أنا حسب رأيي غير مثير، لا أدبيا ولا قيميا ولا جماليا، إنه أنا أكتب كفعل نوستالجي. يعني بتخيل من وقت المنفلوطي يعني إنه انتهت هاي، إنه تكتب عن مكان بشكل نوستالجي لحتى تصير إعجاب الناس. وأنا حسب رأيي اليوم كل كتيبة الستاتوسات الرومانسيين الصبح بحطوا شروق الشمس على بحر عكا وبكتبوا عكا التي أحبها عكا، بيعملوا هذا الدور وإتس أوكي، يعني حق الناس تعمل. بتقديري أي عمل إبداعي إن كان فيلم أو مسرحية أو رواية اللي بدكم إياه، وهذا حكم شخصي مني يعني مش حقيقة مطلقة، لا جدوى من كتابة عن التاريخ ما لم يكن هذا الفعل له دلالات على الحاضر والمستقبل إذا أمكننا حتى. بس المشكلة الكبيرة وين؟ إنه التاريخ، بعرف إذا نور بوافقني، بس أنا أدعي إنه التاريخ شيء غير ثابت، ليكويد، سيال. يعني مش بس إنه ممكن تكتشف حقيقة جديدة عن تاريخ الإغريق أو عن حدث صار في أيار 1948 في يافا اللي غير كل الناراتيف عن النكبة. ممكن مؤرخ جديد ياخذ كل الحقائق الموجودة اليوم يعملها تفسير جديد في كتاب جميل ومنعش جديد ويغير الناراتيف بدون غير الحقائق. يعني نحن محكومون بالأحفوريات بما تعطيه لنا الأرشيف. إذا في القضية الفلسطينية هذا شائك ضرب ألف، لأنه أغلب الماتيريا، أغلب المواد والمخطوطات والأرشيف محتجزة في الأرشيف العسكري الإسرائيلي، ولا يعطى إذن للدخول إلا للمحظيين في الأكاديمية الإسرائيلية الصهيونية بأذون خاصة، إنه يفوتوا وياخدوا هاي الدوسيه اللي فيه أوراق صفراء عن الزراعة والتجارة في قرية قديتا في بين 1930 و 1937. وعادة المؤرخ الفلسطيني لا يحظى بهذا الشرف. فبالتالي بصف انه اللي عم بيكتب او عم بيتحكم في التاريخ الفلسطيني اللي احنا بدنا نرويه هو الارشيف العسكري الاسرائيلي، اللي هو العمليا اليوم الارشيف اللي جمع ارشيف الهجنة وارشيف الايتسل وارشيف الجيش الاسرائيلي في اول نشوء. اغلب المنظمات العسكريه الاسرائيليه النشطه قبل النكبه كلها حطت في الارشيف العسكري الاسرائيلي، بصف انه احنا يعني بقول لك النكبه فعل مستمر، بس خارج الشعار هذا مستمر بالارشيف، هذا مستمر بالتاريخ. يعني الضحيه الاولى لاستمرار النكبه بمعنى حيازه هذا الارشيف واغلاقه واخراسه احنا الضحيه، هذا الضحيه الاولى لفعل استمرار النكبه، لانه انتهاء النكبه يعني مصالحه تاريخيه، فتح الاوراق، بنروح على جنوب افريقيا نتعلم منهم كيف عملوا لجان مصالحه، وكل واحد بيحكي روايته وبنبكي على اكتاف بعض وبنبدا حياه جديده مثلا. هاي المصالحه التاريخيه. بس هذا الخطوه الاولى انه انت تفتح الارشيف وتعطيني الامكانيه اخذ كل اوراق جدي وجدتي واكتبها واعيد كتابتها بالناراتيف تبعي بالروايه تبعتي. فبالتالي الادعاء اللي انا بدي اقوله بالنهايه وهنا تلخيصا انه في ترابط كبير بين كتابه التاريخ وكتابه الادب، في تجاذب وفي تنافر بنفس الوقت. وهذا التوتر الموجود بين هاي اللعبه الازليه ما بين علاقه حب وكراهيه. يعني انا احب التاريخ جدا واحيانا اكره المؤرخين جدا. بس بعدين بحبهم لما اقرا كتاب منيح. لانه التاريخ فيه شيء بعصبا، في نزعه عند المؤرخين او في التاريخ، يمكن هقل شوي اليوم بعد البوست مودرنزم، بس في ناس حتى صارت اشد بعد البوست مودرنزم، انه نحن نقترح روايه عن الحدث وهي قابله للنقاش والمؤتمرات الاكاديميه واعاده التحليل. يعني ما بعرف، يمكن نورون يفيدنا اكثر، انا مش متعمق، بس انه هل التاريخ بطل حاسم زي زمان؟ بمعنى انه هذا هو التاريخ اقبلوه ولا نقاش عليه. ما بعرف، يمكن انت نور تتدخل بالاخر، بس رد بالاخر.
انا حكيت كثير اكثر.
بس الشيء اللي بيخلي الادب اقوى وابقى بعد 1000 سنه، اول شيء انه الادب قائم على ارضيه اقوى، قائم على الحقيقه. راح تتفاجئوا، انا ادعي ان الادب يقوم على الحقيقه، التاريخ يقوم على تاويل الحقيقه، على تفسير معطيات، على انك تاخذ فراجمنتس. يعني مؤرخ اليوم بده يبحث في تاريخ قريه صفد قبل 2000 سنه، هو روايه اكثر منه مؤرخ. هو بيلاقي جره وبيلاقي نص قديم محفور بالعبري، وبيلاقي شيء يمكن بالاشوري مش عارف شو، وبعدين بيلاقي في كتب رحاله، وبقعد وبشغل خياله وقدرته على الاستنباط والاستقراء واعاده القراءه، وببني رواية لما حدث في صفد قبل 2000 سنة، تعتمد على مستمسكات يحق لأي إنسان يقف ويقول له أوكي، بس أنت وصلك لكل هاي المبرزات أنا بستأنف ضده، أنا أرفضه.
والأديب شو بيعمل؟
الأديب يحق له، الأديب أنا نهاية بقتبس ألبير كامي.
انا في لي موقف بيختلف عن
ما انا عم بستفز نور عشان يحكي بالاخر، روح يحكي
لا
بالاخر.
بديش احكي شيء بالمره. لا لانه هن
بدي انهي بجمله حكاها ألبير كامو، جمله رهيبه، حكى انه نحن نروي الكذبه كي نقول الحقيقه. يعني نخترع شخصيات، نخترع احداث، وبالاخر كمان بعرفش اذا هو فرويد او لاكان اللي حكوا انه الادب هو اللاوعي الجماعي. في الوعي الجماعي اللي هو الصحافي والتاريخ والاعلام اللي كنا بنحكي فيه ومندردش ونحكي، بنغرد على التويتر، بنكتب على الفيسبوك، هذا الوعي اللاوعي، هذا الوعي الجماعي الكونسنسس تبعنا. الادب او الشعر او الرسم او حتى الفن التشكيلي، كل عمليه ابداعيه لا تعتمد على الفعل المباشر مع الواقع، بتحاول تفهمه اكثر، برايي هي تكتب اللاوعي الجماعي. وعشان هيك المبدع الحقيقي دائما يسبق شعبه، بفهم اللاوعي الجماعي قبل ما الجماعه نفسها تفهم حالها ايش عم بيصير معها. فكل المبدعين الكبار حسب رايي كانوا سباقين وكانوا رائدين وكانوا وحيدين بهذا الشيء، انه فهموا اللاوعي تبع مجتمعهم. شكرا.
Thank you. I'm trying to summarize a lot of nonsense.
I will call it fluent bullshit.
No, I do not mean that at all. It's a very profound observation. I summarize it very briefly. Alaa Hlehil is commenting and reflecting on his book Au revoir Akka by comparing and contrasting the literary imagination with the historical imagination. And he's suggesting that both are seeking a different kind of truth. And both lie because of their selective reading of events. So there's insolent writing, insolent lies, which are the domain of the novelist, and untruthful lies, which is the domain of the historian. He started by saying this provocatively, and then he changed his mind as he went along. Yeah, so basically what he was discussing in a very eloquent way actually is how historians read the historical truth and how the literary imagines reconstructs that truth with an eye on the present. And I should add here a comment which I should keep for later, but basically that's what historians also do. There's a great deal of ideological reconstruction of historical past in light of the contemporary situation. So the second point he made, which is very interesting, is that the literary imagination gives him a great deal of freedom in reading history. And he's not constrained by the rigor of scholarly historical production, such as the one that Noor Masarha is, because he doesn't have to look behind him all the time to protect himself from the veracity of critical readers. He is freer, and therefore he is more, I think he was suggesting that he's more innovative in his search for the truth. I think this is a very, yeah.
Fair enough.
Cathy.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So I suppose I'm going to change speeds slightly, and I'll be speaking about my book, With Ash on Their Faces, Yazidi Women in the Islamic State. I'm a journalist, not a historian or a comedian, like some of these guys out there. I'll do my best, but it is a serious topic. So I was based in the north of Iraq, as I said, in Iraqi Kurdistan. And on the theme of excavating histories, I just wanted to start with this quote from the American anthropologist Michael Tausig, which I think is relevant for our discussion. And he said that monuments create public dream spaces in which, through the informal and often private rituals, the particularities of one's life make patterns of meaning. I mean, and today we went on a tour of the old city of Haifa, and I think that this idea of dream spaces is relevant to the excavation of histories. And in my work, something that I've seen is the ISIS destruction of monuments, both in Sinjar, where the Yazidis were based, and in Mosul, and in other parts of Iraq. And that was a destruction of the built plurality of the world seen and the world unseen, because of the churches, the temples, the Shia shrines, the Yazidi shrines, the churches, the mosques, but also of the dream spaces, also of the imaginative possibilities of a people that were cut down, as well as being actually cut down, massacred, and raped. But it's this imaginative possibility that I think that by recording stories and narrating, either as a historian or a journalist, we can't hope to make amends for that, but I think that we can hope to try and recreate some of those imaginative possibilities. And I think that that's also why a festival like this is important as well, because in my experience with the Yazidis, when you have to flee your country and when you have to think about the daily needs, then it just creates less space, as I'm sure you all know, for thinking about culture and art and beauty. So this is a wonderful space here, and I thank you at Kalimat for inviting me. I'm going to switch to something... Oh no, it's fine. I'm going to switch to something a little bit more somber now. My book, it also looks at the history of the people and the culture and the religion, which I spoke a little bit about last night on the sacred and profane with Noor, but I'm quite relieved that he's not speaking tonight. So I'm not really going to touch on the history of the Yazidi religion, which is a relief, to be honest, because it's complicated. So this is about the women in captivity, but I hope it points at a kind of deeper truth. So Raqqa, 370 kilometers west of Mosul in northern Syria, became the ISIS de facto capital, and supporters from all over the world flocked there to join the group via the Turkish border. It was also the destination of Zahra and the other women from Sinjar. When we got to the farm near Raqqa, we saw 4 or 5 buses full of ISIS members with long hair and beards, she said. They were like animals. On the first day they came among us and started picking girls for themselves. 2 or 3 of them would catch the girls, blindfold them and take them by force into a car. The girls were crying and shouting and wailing, but the men didn't care. And from the second floor of the buildings, the girls could see the Euphrates River. but they were hidden from the view by the surrounding trees and fences. We were just like sheep when the shepherd goes towards them and the sheep disperse. That's how we were, running away from them. Zahra fled when the men came, but she was blocked by a fence at the edge of a farm, just like an animal. On the first day, the men took between 20 and 40 girls. Food was delivered from a local restaurant for those who remained, but they were too scared to eat. They covered their faces with ash to try and look unattractive in the hope that they wouldn't be picked. After 2 days, Zahra and her sisters were taken to an underground ISIS prison in Raqqa. Hundreds of women were crammed into 3 rooms in what was just one of several similar structures that were used for holding women in Raqqa. The girls arrived at night and they weren't allowed to see the outside of the building, and this was a tactic similar to that used on prisoners by the Syrian government in its jails. Inside the prison, the women had to share a few filthy, overflowing toilets, forcing them to stand in raw sewage. Their bodies were crawling with sandflies. The only light came from 2 solar-powered lamps hanging from the ceiling, one prisoner recalled. Each morning the guards would give them a small piece of bread and cheese to share between 2, and in the evening some rice and soup. Some women sat on bags or clothes to try to avoid touching the filthy ground. Children cried constantly with hunger. The women waited under constant fear of rape and death. They were always trying to beat us, and we had diarrhea because of the fear, said Kulka, who had arrived at the prison with her 4 children inside a refrigerator truck normally used for ice cream. She's 30 years old and she comes from the town of Tel Qaseb. We didn't have a shower for 1 month. We always had lice in our hair. And after 2 months they took us outside, but we couldn't stand it because we hadn't seen the sun for so long. While in the jail, Kulka tattooed herself with the names of her husband and her father so that her body could be recognized and returned to them if she was killed. We did it with needles. The blood would go here on our hands, she said. But we said, let us die. She mixed the breast milk from a lactating woman with ash and used a needle she smuggled inside of the jail. With the same needle and some thread, she began to embroider her underwear with the names and numbers listed in her phone in case ISIS found it and took it away. Kulka had been to school, and unlike many of the women there, she knew how to read and write, and she began sewing other women's clothes with their loved ones' names and numbers so that they would not be forgotten. Historically, the Yazidis eschewed formal education that was associated with the repressive state authorities, languages, and the threat of conversion to Islam. The tradition faded of illiteracy, but its impact can still be seen in the female illiteracy rate. Kulka was taken to a side room in the prison with her children and photographed by an ISIS guard who gave her the slave number 16, which was then printed above her photo. There were around 500 women in the jail, she recalled, and all of them had to pose with their children and were given slave numbers. Before the picture was taken, she cut her daughter's hair to make her look like a boy and to stop them being separated. If the guards recognized her daughter as a young girl, there was more chance that she'd be taken. The other imprisoned women were jealous of Kulka's grey hair, thinking it might save her too from being seized, and they tried to imitate it, also using ash. Some of these women and girls resisted forced conversion and protected themselves against violence, or at least tried to, and protected their children. How they resisted really shows incredible intelligence, courage and strength, said the human rights lawyer Shahrazan Manwala. Yazidi women who fled what is now Turkey in the final years of the Ottoman Empire during the First World War and the chaos that followed passed down stories that are repeated among Sinjari women today, and among them are accounts of how they did what Kulka was now doing, covering their daughters' faces with ash and cutting their hair to try and stop them being enslaved.
I wonder if you would tell us a bit how you went about researching this book, and if you're willing, how the research and the writing of a painful book like this affected you?
Sure. So I was already reporting on this issue for British newspapers, and I was asked to write this book, and it involved a period of about 8 or 9 months living with the Yazidi communities that are now displaced in a city called Duhok in Iraqi Kurdistan. So I just did what was natural, and every day went on visits to different families and tried to get people used to my presence and just talk to them. And I suppose one thing that's important to say is that I'm not trying to be overly earnest, but I really did emphasize consent, because I think that when women have been through such awful things, I mean not just women, but anyone has been through the experience of sexual violence, that consent and dehumanization are part of the course. So often as journalists, what I observed, because I was living there, is I saw journalists going in and perhaps not quite explaining exactly what they were doing, and just demanding that stories be told to them, and then taking those stories away, which has negative colonial resonances. So what I tried to do was really explain, look, this is who I am, this is what I'm doing. If you want to be involved with it, you can be involved. So yeah, it was just a long period of talking to people, and yeah, it was. These stories were awful to hear. I think something that stayed with me from the reporting experience was to actually really think a lot more critically about this idea of human rights. And this is something that I got from the absolute visceral anger of these women who are completely powerless, and kind of structurally powerless as well, and that's one of the reasons that they ended up in this situation, and I talk about that in the backstory. But very politically marginalised, economically, for a whole host of reasons, historical and contemporary, and Iraq war. Slightly lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, but the visceral anger that related to the international discourse of human rights. And what is this human rights? I'm a human. That this is what the women would say to me. These things happen to me, and yet you call them human rights. And I think that that's something that really stayed with me, and I can no longer hear this phrase human rights or think about it in this glib way that people throw off, that of course this is okay, yeah, it's something that we should aim for, and it's something wonderful, but if it's not even tangible for some people, and if they are subjected to some of the worst inhumanities with no other recourse, then it sounds actually really hypocritical and terrible to hear this word human rights, because it pushes you away from the idea of what's human. So that's the main thing that stayed with me.
Thank you. Before I turn the floor to you to ask you questions, I want to say a few words about Susana Abulhawa, who has written an essay to a book that my wife Penny and I edited, Seeking Palestine. And in the essay she speaks about her own history, and it's a memoir. And she speaks about how she grew up in Dar al-Tifl in Jerusalem, and how much she was helped there, and then the difficulties she had with her foster family in the United States. And then she writes in her fictional novel, between the sky, the blue between the sky and water. In the words of the fictional character Noor, the following words, and I thought they were pertinent to our theme today. Noor was always on the way. Maybe it was the impermanence of foster care, the idea of aging in or out of home, of not having an option to return once you leave. She had no real anchors in the world, and so she was always on her way to herself, on her way to redemption, on her way to language, to something heavy enough to weigh her against the wind. And now I turn the floor over to you to ask questions. I must say it's difficult to see from the light, so but I think I the right. Yeah, go ahead.
I'll use English. First of all, thank you very, very much. That was very inspiring. Two questions. One is a question of observation. The other is just a quick one. Is it where can one get access to this incredible story of Alaa in this Siberian diary? Is that something accessible? Because that sounds absolutely incredible.
Well,
through your writing, or?
Yeah, you can find it in the introduction to a book titled Year of the Locust, which is the diary of Hassan Tujman. And it refers to a diary written by Alaa in Siberia. It was published separately in an essay called معناقة الله في سيبيريا في مجلة الدراسات الفلسطينية. معناقة الله في سيبيريا. The bulk of the diary is available but not accessible. So you have to wait 12 years, which is the period that it has been closed by the family, before you can actually read it. This is a legal technicality. It was suppressed for the longest possible time that lawyers allow for families to have papers which are basically in the public domain. It's 15 years. It's been 3 years since then, so it's 15 years. In legal terms, I mean, you are a lawyer, you would know better. It's called لأجل اللي هو تعبير قانوني يعني 15 سنة حسب ما أنا فهمت. So, but until then you can go to these two separate texts. And they are outside, lying outside.
Thank you. And the other one, I just listening to everybody. Actually, there was discussing how do you approach history and why do you go back to history, which Alaa kind of touched on the question of you don't do it because of nostalgic reasons. And why do you do it? And I was kind of thinking that, asking the question whether that is, what do you think about that? Whether it's actually finding a sense of confidence. Because when you go back to Herodotus or whatever it is, the way people lived before is the way we live now. What happened then is Rapa tomorrow. And so it gives us as human beings a sense of confidence that what we have now is. Does that, any thoughts about that?
Well, I could say you can understand it more if you refer to your question by adding histories. There are a lot of histories, there is no history. And if you understand the meaning of the essence of being, there's a lot versions of history about everything, almost. So you can find that one kind of history it's for family purposes, and the other kind of history it's just for the community, and the other kind of history is just for the state, and then you have this history for the academic people, and then you have this history for popular and folklore. So it's endless kind of histories, and you pick up the one you need. It's according to your needs. So if I'm going after like the oral history of my Kadita village, it's very specific kind of history, and you will find a lot of histories about it because it's influenced. But like it's almost 70 years now, people forgot about a lot of oral history about Kadita, and the remains of it were they were changed a lot of times because people forget a word here and a phrase here, and so it's a selective history everywhere you look around you. It depends what you are looking through this history. It's like your peace of mind, it's justice, it's to know who you are, and you know, there's a new approach, or I'm not sure it's new, but there's a whole approach in the academic system now. It says, like, in the big word, like, fuck history. I don't need to know what was the history here in this land 3,000 years ago. I don't need that to understand Israel. There's this kind of approach now, like, sometimes history gets you back too much, and so you lose your present and future. So I ask this question also about us as the Palestinians. How many years should we wait until we say, okay, enough Nakba? Maybe the Nakba is kind of, you know, we are losing some hour of strength in keeping the memory of Nakba. Now, I'm not saying it's a bad thing to do. I'm saying, what is the cost that we are paying year after year, and decade after decade, and generation after generation, just to let my kids now to remember the stories of Kadita? Is it useful for them in 20 years from now? So I think it's about what you are looking for in this kind of histories, because you cannot find a lot of things there.
My book, The Rift in Time, is not a history book, it's more of a travelogue. But I had a very specific purpose in using Refika, this memoir of Najib, and to write about it. And my specific purpose was to follow his route and write about the land as he perceived it, as he saw it, as he experienced it, and my own experience in the present day. So this was a way of showing how the land has changed, or how the experience of the land has changed, when the land is the land, it hasn't changed. Anyone else?
اولا بيشرفني جدا وجودي بينكم، واعذروني راح اتحدث بالعربي، ومعني اوجه اسئلتي للكاتب علاء هليحل. اولا راح يبقى في عندي سؤالين كنصائح كشخص اللي بيطلع انه يبقى كاتب تاريخي وكاتب بشكل عام، واخرى مداخلتين تتعلق بالمعنى تبع التاريخ والمعنى تبع الانتاج الادبي. اولا لما انت مؤرخ يعني اديب نوعا ما، فعندك اهتمام بالتاريخ واهتمام بالادب، فالاهتمام الشديد في التاريخ كيف يعني نجحت في تحديد موضوع البحث التاريخي لما في اهتمام بالتاريخ الفلسطيني مثلا او بشكل عام ككل؟ في عده مواضيع تبقى مثيره للاهتمام والانسان بيبقى يبحث فيها، فكيف الانسان بيوصل لهي المرحله انه يختار الفتره التاريخيه والحدث صاحب الخصوصيه المحدده انه يكتب عنه؟ ثانيا بتفق جدا مع التعليق انه الكاتب بيقوم بعمليه خلق، بس هاي العمليه مرات بتشكل عبء على الكاتب انه يوازن بين حياته الشخصيه وبين العاديه يعني، وبين حياته كأديب، بين حياته كشخص خالق نوعا ما في عالم خارجي اللي ما حدا غيره بيفهمه. فمشان الكاتب يستمر بممارسه الكتابه هو بحاجه لطاقات هائله وعظيمه، فكيف بشكل شخصي نوعا ما بسأل نجحت في المداومه على الكتابه والمداومه على عمليه الخلق اللي هي عمليه مش سهله ابدا، فبحتاج هاي النصيحه. وبرضه بميل اني انظر للتاريخ هو مش بس نوع من سائل او نهر، هو حركه دائريه بتدور بفلك معين نحو كمال معين اللي هو يعني بتدور حول الانسان نفسه، فهي بدخل فيها التأويل لكن تدخل فيها معاني ثانيه. وبرضه بتفق مع عدم ضروره الكتاب المجند الان، لانه بحاجه لخلق ادبي حضاري جديد، لخلق روايه جديده، لايجاد لبعث يعني نوعا ما. فشكرا.
أوكي. بالنسبة للسؤال الأول، يعني أنا مش مؤرخ طبعا، واهتماماتي في التاريخ الصراحة بديت بشكل خاص لما عملت الريسيرش البحث عن الرواية. الفكرة يعني أنا فاهم سؤالك، بس الجواب هو أدبي مش تاريخي. يعني أنا بقدر أقول لك إسا 1000 شعار عن ضرورة الكتابة عن فلسطين وتاريخ الماضي تبعنا وكذا، اتس اوكي. أنا حسب رأيي أنا ككاتب إذا الإشي مثير إلي على المستوى الشخصي بكتب عنه، إذا لا بالمطلق. يعني عامر اخوي هون قاعد وعم بحكي له عن مشروع عم بفكر فيه، روايه اللي هي 2000 صفحه، يعني ابوس عائلي عن دار حليحل من القرن العشرين. قصة هاي العيلة قبل 48 من قديتها من القرن العشرين لليوم، شو صار بهاي العيلة وإيش بقدر أحكي عن طريقها عن فلسطين. أنا هذا المشروع مأجله من 10-15 سنة، لما أحس إنه صار انترستنج إلي كفاية أقعد وأعمل ريسيرش أكتب، راح أكتب، إذا لا راح أكتب. يعني أنا بآمن إنه شيء بسيط جدا، إذا المادة مش مثيرة إلي ككاتب مش رح تكون مثيرة للقارئ. فالعامل الأساسي بالنسبة إلي اللي بقرر عن شو أكتب، وإذا أكتب عن تاريخ كمان مرة أو عن المستقبل أو عن الماضي، هو إذا الشيء مثير إلي على المستوى الشخصي محضا بدون أي تأثير لا أيديولوجي ولا تاريخي ولا نكبوي ولا وطني. بالعكس العوامل الوطنية بتعيق الإنتاج الإبداعي الصحيح. يعني أنت بحاجة تتحرر من الالزام انه اوكي انا فلسطيني هسه لازم اكتب عن الحواجز، لا مش لازم تكتب عن الحواجز. انا فلسطيني لازم اكتب عن مصادرات الاراضي بالجليل، لا مش لازم تكتب عن يوم الارض اذا فيش عندك شيء مثير تكتبه عن يوم الارض بالمطلق. اذا كتبت نص سيء عن يوم الارض انت بتكتب عملت عمل غير وطني، انت كرهت الناس بيوم الارض. هاي واحدة من مساوئ الادب المجند، الاشترار. انه اذا بتكتب لي قصيدة غير مثيرة، قصيدة سيئة عن عذابات الفلسطيني، انت اسأت للفلسطيني مش افدته. السؤال الثاني بالنسبة للخلق، يعني انا يعني انت متفائلة جدا، انا صار لي 4 سنين ما كتبتش. انا في حالة شلل مطلق. انا اشتغلت على رواية حوالي 3 سنين ريسيرش وبحث، رواية مستقبلية، وقفتها قبل السنة، زتيتها في الجرور، ما بعرف وين بيجي يومها. لسه عم بحاول ابني كمان مرة سينوبسيس لرواية جديدة، ولسه مش متقدم يعني قيد انملة. يعني شكله عن جد الخلق بتاعك، يعني الحق مع الله هيك يتريح اليوم السابع يعني. كيف؟ اهون شيء الشعر. طلع هو مش خلق يعني ولا مرة هو من الصفر. انت كإنسان المبدع زي أي إنسان عنده ال5 حواس، من ناحية أبستمولوجية ومن ناحية إدراك ومن ناحية وعي، وبيستوعب العالم ال5 حواس. فإذا ممكن لسه بهاي القعدة صار حدث اللي أثار اهتمامي ممكن أكتب عليه قصة قصيرة، ممكن لا. السؤال بضل إنه قديش قدرة، يعني في واحد حكى وأنا بوافق، حكى إنه الأديب بالأساس هو صياد، هو صياد شخصيات، صياد أفكار، صياد مواقف، هو لص حوارات. يعني أنا واحدة من المتعة اللي كانت عندي قبل ما أشتري سيارة، لما أطلع بالسيرفيس على الكهيفة أو بالترين أحط السماعات بس ما أضويش الموسيقى وأتسمع على الناس إيش بيحكوا، لأنه أحسن واحد بالعالم ممكن يعلمك كيف بنت تتخانق مع أمها على التلفون هو بنت تتخانق مع أمها على التلفون. فالفكرة الخلق هو عملية تجميع، أنت بتاخذ المواد الخام وبتسر شخصية من هون وجملة من هذا وموقف صار مع فلان وقصة انحكت قدامك وبتقعدي. الخلق بالآخر هو مش بالكتابة من الصفر، هو تحرير للعالم، هو editing. انت بتعيدي انت تحرير وترتيب العالم اللي حواليك، وبالآخر بتخلقي رواية جديدة عن العالم.
في عندنا 10 دقائق، في حدا We have 10 more minutes left, and so anybody has final questions.
يسأل الأستاذ سليم عن الإحساس لما تكتب شيء من المذكرات. المذكرات هي انكتبت بهدف أن نوعا ما توصف بنفس الوقت في الانتماسي في الشيء الشخصي، كلمة مذكرات في الشيء الشخصي. فقديش الشيء بالإضافة للشيء قد المذكرات كمان انكتبت مش بهدف أدبي، فهي كمان توصف الأحداث اليومية، فممكن تكون توصف بطريقة اللي هي مش كثير جمالية أدبية، ممكن بالعكس تضارب بالناراتيف العام القصة اللي كده عشان توصف جمعة معينة أو شهر معين.
ما فهمتش سؤالك، انه كيف تقرأ هذه المذكرات قصدك؟
ديسونانس بالشيء انه انت عم تقرأ نفس الوقت مذكرات انكتبت، اللي كتب مذكرات هو صح كتبها بطريقة انتيمس، يعني له هي مذكرات فهي له، فهي بس نفس الوقت اللي بيكتب شيء فهدفه اللاواعي تبعه انه يوصل هذا الشيء.
نعم.
ينقل هذا الشيء.
نعم، هذا السؤال كثير مهم، انه كيف نقرا هاي المذكرات وكيف نحطها بسياقها. يعني الفرق بين المؤرخ، اذا تسمح لي استاذ علاء، والمؤلف الادبي، انه يمكن قد يكون السياق، انه كيف تقرا هذه الكتابات الحميميه في اطار تفسيري، مش بس للظروف والبواحث الشخصيه، وانما الظروف المجتمعيه اللي ظهرت في هذه الدراسات. وهذه تحدي لكل الكتاب، يعني مش كلنا بننجح فيها. قراءة المذكرات كمان لازم تعرف انه اللغة اللي انكتبت فيها بتعني اشياء مختلفة عن فهمنا لهذه المفردات، لأن ومش معني فيها السنتكس فقط، وإنما اللغة بمعنى إنه تعبير الجمل. مثلا في دراسة هامة جدا روحي الخالدي اللي كان عضو مجلس المبعوثات، كتاب اسمه، هو نوع من المذكرات، الانقلاب العثماني. الانقلاب العثماني نشره سنة 11 عن الثورة الدستورية، ومات سنة 13. فبيحيي فيه الثورة الدستورية ضد طغيان عبد الحميد، وبيحكي كيف انه هذا الانقلاب بيختلف عن الثورة الفرنسية. هون في شيء لازم نفهمه، انه كلمة انقلاب كما استعملها الخالدي بهذيك الفترة كما تستعمل اليوم في ايران بالفارسية بتعني ثورة. كلمة انقلاب كان استعمل ثورة، هو بيعني انه الثورة الفرنسية بيستعمل كلمة ثورة ما كانت انقلاب، كانت فوضى، بينما الانقلاب العثماني كان ثورة بمعنى المنظمة، يعني تضع الحدود لطغيان الحميدي وتنظمها بطريقة فشلت الثورة الفرنسية في إعدادها. هلا هون في شغلتين مهمين للمؤرخ انه يعرفها. الاولى انه استعمال التعابير بهذاك السياق كانت تعني اشياء بتختلف عن فهم اليوم. اثنين، انه هو كتب في بداية الثورة الدستورية وما شاف بالاخر انه فعلا فشلت. فهذا التفاؤل الجامع ومقارنته السيئة مع الثورة الفرنسية كانت وليدة قربه على الأحداث وعدم يعني صيرورته كفاية إنه يقدر يفسر. هذه واحدة. الثانية إنه قراءتنا للمذكرات يجب أن تكون في سياق أوسع من مذكرات أخرى، يعني لازم يكون عندنا اطلاع على عديد من هذه النوع من المذكرات عشان نعرف كيف نفسرها. ونموذج على هذا أنا استعملته رسائل. مش كل الرسائل المذكرات مكتوبة حميمية بشكل مذكرات، رسائل كتير مهمة، رسائل متبادلة اللي فيها حميمية وفيها كمان سياق مهم. أنا حصلت على 42 رسالة متبادلة بين سلطان عبده وخليل السكاكيني من سنة 6 لسنة 8. كان هو مسافر على أمريكا، كنت أبعث له رسائل، كان هو يبعث له رسائل غرامية وهي تصده تقريبا. كانت كثير يعني تعلموا، يعني مضلكش تئن ووجع وهلكني
شو اسمك
وإنه في ناس إذا بدك يعني فعلا ارجع، لأنه في ناس تانيين عم بفكروا فيه. أنا اهتميت في هذا السياق باللغة وسميتها بدايات الحب الرومانسي في فلسطين، لأنه أول مرة بنشوف عواطف متبادلة مكتوبة بهذا الشكل. ما في نص ثاني أنا بعرفه موجود قبل هذا التاريخ.
كان في حب بس ما كانش مكتوب.
كانت الظاهرة موجودة طبعا، بس التعبير عنها ويمكن وتعبر عن محلات تانية بس ما قدرنا نوصلها. ففي لحظة نادرة هون إنه تسمح لنا نفهم كيف حصلت بدايات الحب الرومانسي كما هو مكتوب على الأقل. هلا في ناس بيقولوا زي زميلتنا هون إنه ظاهرة موجودة قبل. أنا في الواقع عم بدعي شيء بيختلف. أنا بقول ما كانش موجود قبل. يعني الحب الرومانسي كما عبر عنه بهذه الرسائل ما بتشوفوا قبل، لأنه الظاهرة جديدة إنه الفتى يعبر لفتاة بدون تدخل أهلها عن غرامه بهذه الطريقة المحدثة، يعني بيستعمل لغة كثير حديثة. إذا قريت المنفلوطي ونصوص من القرن التاسع عشر عن الغرام تلاحظ إن لغة الحب المرة بتختلف كانت highly stylized و decorative. في شيء جديد في الموضوع عبرت عنه هذه الرسالة.
شكرا لحضوركم. Thank you for being such a tolerant audience. And now Mahmoud wants to say
Thank you very much, distinguished guests and speaker. This is my emotional moment. It is our closing event and the last night of our 5 hard-working days. I've been working on this for 10 months and I simply don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow morning after a long sleep. But to tell you the complete truth, I couldn't have done this without the support of an amazing team that was working side by side. Mandy and Tawfiq from the Canyon Institute, who kept my sanity and really supported everything along the line. Anya, who also always took the back seat but did what she needed for smooth events. Yazid and Sunny for being more than photographers and travel guides and everything in between. Ahmed, my colleague at the bookshop, for also being a fantastic cultural warrior. Caroline, Mirna and Mira from the British Council, who were a superb support team and they never failed us and never said no to anything we needed to make this festival a success. Of course, Martin and David, thank you very much for your support. You have trusted us with plenty of planning, structuring and the implementation of this festival the way we always saw it suitable. And in closing, as a Kalimat on behalf of the team, I'm very grateful for the writers who accepted our invitation and who took the hassle of traveling with us for the last week and for eating hummus and falafel every single day. Hopefully you know a bit about Palestinian culture by now. I couldn't be more grateful for being in this room with 3 distinguished historians, Palestinian historians, who is on their shoulders is the Palestinian narrative in all its aspects, and being surrounded by an exceptional 11 other writers who have really approached the theme that we have imposed on them to try to bring conformality to this festival. Thank you very much again for being part of this. And I look forward to be again in Haifa with other writers and with other speakers. Thank Fattoush for hosting us, and thanks again for the audience. Enjoy your evening, and thank you again one more time. Thank you.